was the backfield of the future on the field early in the fourth quarter. So I was calling a Southern Utah game for a decent chunk of this one. And I check over during a commercial break and I see that Dante Moore is in the game. And I went, this is going phenomenally well. Indeed it was. So Dante Moore is out there. 3 of 3, 27 yards passing, marches the offense right down the field. Then, as the drive is progressing, you're watching this guy run the football, who earlier on Ducks versus them, I can't wait for that, by the way. Cannot wait for that one. Earlier this year, on one of those Ducks versus them recaps, you heard the coaching staff say Little Bucky when talking about Dink Riggs. And Bucky Irving, by the way, I'll admit it, he's proving me wrong right now. I loved him at Oregon. Wasn't sure how he'd do in the NFL. He's doing awesome. He's doing phenomenally well. He just had I think 200 total yards of offense. Bo Nix plays later tonight. Everything's going great, right? It's all part of the plan, as the Joker would say. That was only a half Joker impression, so no judgment allowed. But I'm watching Dante Moore and Dink Riggs move this offense down the field and thinking, is this 2025? Is this what we're going to get? Two major thoughts. Let's start with Dante Moore. First of all, how comfortable did he look? He was not going up against the Washington Twos. To my knowledge, they kept the offense and defensive starters out there the entire game. You had Damon Williams and Giles Jackson and Denzel Boston going against the Oregon number 2 defense. And you also had guys like Cam Fibiculanen and Carson Bruner, who were starters and key players on the field when Dante Moore marched them right down the field. So nothing was overly complicated for Dante Moore's 3 passing attempts, but I liked that he looked comfortable. I also liked that he's a young guy and his arm in a cold weather game in November holding up just fine. Got plenty of arm strength. I was not as impressed with any of his 3 completions as I was with his incompletion. I'll start with the completions first. So he had a quick out route to Jeremiah McClellan, little off target, but not a bad thing to be shading the ball to the outside towards the boundary. And Jeremiah McClellan clearly going to be a guy that pops as a wide receiver next year. He is the go-to. He's been the go-to for Novosad. He's been the go-to for Dante Moore when they get in the game. That's clearly someone who's going to be a dude. He had a bubble screen to Tez Johnson. I think Tez was only in there to get himself back to game speed. He made sure to not take a hit running forward. The ball placement on a bubble screen, which is harder to do than you'd think, was absolutely positively perfect. So I liked all of those things. But it was the incompletion that made me go, whoo, that's right. That's what this guy's capable of. So on a play where Trayshawn Holden, again, drew a holding call, back to my point earlier and why he was a standout for me. He was running phenomenal routes, just absolutely outstanding. He gets up, it's a cover 2 concept. So the corner's sitting in the flat, meaning he's going to try and jam and redirect Holden underneath. He gets too grabby, Holden runs, and Dante Moore has to layer this ball in between the safety and the corner, going down the sideline. That throw is as close to perfect as you could possibly have, and I think it actually was. I think the timing was perfect. It's just that Holden was held, and so instead of that ball being right on his hands, it was right on his fingertips. He gets hit by the safety. But that ball placement is what the scouting report on Dante Moore was when he came out of high school. It was, hey, this guy can put the ball in crazily accurate spots. He can move a little bit. Not a lot, but a little bit. Not as much as Dylan Gabriel, but he can move if he needs to. He's not a guy who's necessarily going to take off and run, but he can move in order to throw. And it's a small sample size. It's what we have to go off of. Small sample size, but a really encouraging one. Most importantly, the biggest thing for him is he needs to look and feel comfortable. Well, he needs to feel comfortable, which means he needs to look comfortable to all of us watching on TV, because at UCLA, he never looked comfortable. Never looked comfortable. The game was moving too quickly. Didn't feel that way on that drive. I felt like he made the right reads in the RPO game, and he made some good throws. So I'm encouraged. I don't think anything has been 100% decided. Because remember, we've seen Austin Novosad this year. He's done some nice things. I went back and watched the spring game several times after it happened because I kept going to myself, thinking to myself, man, how did Novosad look that good? He can make really good throws. And by the way, when Novosad was in against Illinois in garbage time, they could have gone down the field and scored, but they decided to kneel the clock out because they were in that particular position. But Dante Moore gets in early fourth quarter, and this is just tremendously valuable work. And getting against Washington, yeah, that's definitely sweet. Like I didn't have that on my bingo card. Rivalry game. Washington's not bad. They're not great. Oregon getting the backups in early fourth quarter. That was pretty awesome. Keep them rested for the Big Ten championship game. So overall, like what I saw from Dante Moore. I don't think he's won the starting job. I think you'd certainly consider him the favorite with his profile and history with Oregon. But I didn't see anything that made me go, oh my gosh, he's 100% the starter. I just saw things that made me go, he looks more comfortable. He's only throwing a few passes, but the offensive line was giving him a bunch of time to throw. That certainly helps. But that's kind of the idea, isn't it? Build an offensive line that protects your quarterback. Okay, now I want to talk about Dink Riggs. So Oregon's running back room next year could very well have Dink Riggs near the top of it. Could also not. Jordan James could come back if he wants to. Does that remind you of anybody on this year's team? Like, I don't know, Jeff Bossa, Terrence Ferguson? Just throwing it out there. A Johnny Cornelius, those guys could have gone to the NFL. They decided to come back. Maybe Jordan James does that. Maybe Jordan James likes his NFL draft stock where it is. Noah Whittington, well, he could come back. He's ahead of Riggs on the depth chart. Jaden Lamar, Jay Harris, we've seen those guys pretty sparingly throughout the year. Bottom line is this position group has a lot of depth. One thing that definitely stands out to me in the garbage time action we've seen, I think Jaden Lamar is a fine player. He can be, he does some lead blocking things and brings that kind of energy and that grit factor to the running back room. I'm never as impressed watching him run as I am Dink Riggs. That guy, they call him Little Bucky. Looks like Little Bucky to me. That's how it appears. Every time he touches the ball, I see the lateral movement. He doesn't look too small. He's a true freshman. This is a true freshman. And a guy who, by the way, recruiting rankings are great. They give you a lot of information in there. Riggs was the fourth lowest rated recruit according to 24/7. He came all the way from St. John's High School in Washington, D.C. He's a three-star guy per 24/7. He's a three-star composite. He's a number 700 player nationally. Some guys are just under-recruited. That's how he looks to me. So I'm not sitting here saying Jaden Lamar can never have a role in Oregon's offense and be a good player. I think he's solid. I think Riggs is better. I am far more impressed watching him run or the limited action we've seen from Jay Harris. Those guys to me have brought more to the table from what we have seen so far as fans than what Lamar has done so far. And we also saw Lamar bust a 50-plus yard touchdown against Oregon State on a screen pass earlier this year. It's not as if the guy isn't capable, but Riggs' balance, vision, explosion, he looks like he's just got it. Showed a little bit of power on the touchdown. Like, that guy looks really good. So he might not be Oregon starter in 2025. He could be a Dante Dowdell, who, by the way, 100% is starting caliber back. He's thriving in Nebraska, and deservedly so. He's really good. You know why he's not here? Because he wasn't going to play. Because he's got guys ahead of him. So if there are guys ahead, maybe Riggs decides, I want to go somewhere and transfer. I wouldn't be able to blame him. Would not be able to blame him whatsoever. But I think it's a higher likelihood that Dante Moore is starting in 2025 than Dink Riggs. But do we see both of them? Well, we'll just have to wait and see. Appreciate everyone listening. I'll see you next time. Have a wonderful rest of your day, and go Ducks.